Yes, I am a former lawyer who actually spent a few listless years in the criminal justice field. And even as a law student, I was more interested in the social justice arena, constitutional rights. So I spent very little or no time really in the corporate sector in law. And eventually, after my master's, I came to do some research work in domestic violence issues, particularly intimate partner violence. And surprisingly, law came about for me more as a elimination process after what I didn't want to do in life. And I'm actually very glad that today students have a host of opportunities and avenues that they can explore, which 15 years ago I didn't necessarily have more of that exposure than the quote unquote core professions. But no complaints, because I grew up in an environment that valued rounded growth as an individual. So I always had varied interests like music and sports and all those things that you put at the bottom of your resume. So I have no complaints regards to studying law as such. It's just that it was not something that I think I was meant to do. And so today I am a yogasana teacher and a wellness coach, and I have founded a learning center called Mohan Ashram, through which my goal is to communicate the importance of a harmonious state of life and living. For me, it was more of the what than the who, of doing something on my own, of having an own enterprise of my own, because I was struggling greatly to fit into the set systems in the legal field or even otherwise. And I think my upbringing had a lot to do with that, because I come from a family full of doctors who, even though they run their own setups, it never appeared to be something of a business in the more conventional sense, or and as entrepreneurs in the more conventional sense. It's a different story now, considering as doctors, they have to deal with many different legal boundaries and public pressure. But at that time, when I was growing up, it was a whole different scenario. So basically, I watched these amazing people put out tremendous work at their own terms, and simultaneously causing a deep positive impact within the community, within the society that they were placed in. So for me, when I founded Mohan Ashram, it was never really about taking a risk in the hope of profit, or it was never really in question, because I came from a place of wanting to affect the same kind of positive change that I saw growing up within the community I was in. And luckily for me, I yoga found me at the same time that my energy levels were the lowest in my legal field, so to say, and everything sort of snowballed. So I think, to answer your question, it would be definitely my whole upbringing as a whole, to come from a family full of amazing people. This one is actually easy for me, because the most important skill that I have today is that I'm an expert learner now. It's kind of a de rai durustai situation, and or as George Bernard Shaw has famously said, that education is wasted on the young. That fit my context very well. So I think I say this because moving away from the mindset that values certificates and embellishments has been monumental in creating this skill set. And because now I learn to learn and not to prove anything. Many of us do foster this. Many people don't, of course. I was one of the ones who valued proving that. So that change, that shift has been the biggest skill that I have taken in this process. And this one base skill set has actually helped me cultivate many more important practical um, skill sets that help the setting up or running of the enterprise that I have at the moment, which is definitely time management skills. There is definitely an ability to accept and work on feedback from all different quarters, and other general organizational attributes for sure. But I think most importantly, what it has done for me is help me motivate to keep on setting and achieving new and improved goals for myself and for what I'm putting out there. So yeah, expert learning, I think. It's been great. It's been something that I use actually more of a personal record than anything else, which may not be really helpful when you're setting up your enterprise, but it's definitely been useful to highlight what I have to offer. I have more than what I have given. I think I seek a lot more opportunities from there in terms of the courses that are available, or some events that I may attend, to just keep on learning new things, and also to connect with like-minded people. So that's been, of course, the goal of social media in general, which I'm putting to use. And definitely I have put out my advertisements for classes and workshops and what you may. Now social media is a whole world in itself, and I I'm afraid I don't know so much in depth about it as a business person. So currently the importance for me has been surface level, but in the future, in the near future, I will certainly be putting it to task in a more informed and systematic manner. I would think that it would differ from business to business, or the kind of enterprise that you have, because when I started off three years ago or so, it was more person to person awareness building, which helped me at that time. But for this generation and for generations to come, social media is an excellent tool when put to use properly, of course. So it can be studied well, it can be employed well in a way that benefits you and your enterprise. And there are pitfalls, of course, like anything else, but ultimately it's a tool that you can choose to use in a manner that you would like. So social media can really have a big impact on what you're taking from the virtual world and what you're giving out there, definitely. I think the most difficult obstacle for me to overcome was something that I kept putting in place for myself. I say this because I come from a space where I have had the privilege of having unconditional support from my family and my friends, but I was not supporting myself. I was not ready to support myself to um, really figure out what it is that I wanted or needed from the life that I was living, and spent a whole lot of time just trying to fit in and live by the conditioning that you receive, maybe outside of your home or in general, the supposed to be of it. So I spent a lot of my time doing that, trying to fit in when there was really no need to. But once I overcame that, I was ready to jump, and I managed to fly. So this was also true on a more practical level in terms of challenges, because if you don't have clarity when you're setting up something, it becomes difficult to, of course, becomes difficult to set up something in the first place, but also to sift through the advice that you may be receiving, which may not necessarily be helpful in that particular moment. So people come from a good place, definitely, but whether or not it applies to you, that faculty of discretion comes from when you have that kind of clarity, which itself is also an important skill set to possess. So apart from that, it becomes difficult to find a balance between action and planning, and this results in untimely, incorrect decisions, and either retards or hampers your growth altogether. So for me, it was the clarity right at at the start in where I was heading with what I was setting up. It would be connected to what I said earlier as well. I think that take the time to explore what is important to you when thinking about your enterprise, because it is ultimately an extension of you and what you have to offer to the world. So don't rush into it. Find people to talk to, learn from them, and at the same time, learn about yourself in this process. And of course, the second thing that I would recommend is having a strong support system in place, because it's important to have that when sometimes you might not have the best of days. Sometimes there might be more obstacles than wins, which happens. So have a good support system in place. Fortunately for me, my immediate connections have been the wind beneath my wings, really. Still, I have found this kind of support from the most unexpected of places and people. So sometimes you may actively have to look for it, and if that is the case for you, then do it. Don't scrimp on that aspect. I would advise. And I understand very much that it is easy to say this, but I would encourage exploring setting up of enterprises that value principles of ethics, that value more the planet and people over profit.